I forgot earlier to do our announcements along with our prayer concerns. You think Tom would have reminded me, because one of the announcements is that Enid needs help next Sunday with a couple of volunteers for the Helen Wright Center. So if anyone is free early in the morning next Sunday, I think breakfast has to be served around 7 o'clock downtown, so you still finish and have your whole day ahead of you. She just needs 2 or 3 people. So if you can volunteer next Sunday morning, you can call Enid directly, or you can talk to me or Amanda, and then we can help get the bus passes to Enid. I also want to be sure to thank Jack DeBruin, our guest soloist for today. We always appreciate when he comes and shares his gift of music with us. After worship today, right after worship, if you are on the church board, it's your last official duty is to stay and vote on our new board and our new budget for the coming year. So if you are on the board, if you will stay, we will have that meeting in here. Right, Steve? In the sanctuary. This afternoon, if you are going to camp, if you're one of our campers going to camp today, you need to be here at the church at 2 o'clock to ride down to camp. And we also want to make sure everyone knows you're invited to a church-wide outing to the Durham Bulls baseball game. We're organizing a group trip to the ballpark on July 14th on a Sunday evening. So if you want to go, either RSVP on Facebook or call the church office or let Amanda and I know it so we reserve enough seats for our group. That's for all ages. For the next month, we are embarking on a journey with Jesus. While a lot of us are coming and going on our summer travels, here in worship, we'll be following Jesus and the disciples as they visit various places around Israel to see what we can learn from their travel experiences. One of the reasons that I love going on trips is that I usually come home with a better understanding not just of the world or the place that I visited, but of myself too. So my hope is that as we journey with Jesus, our faith horizons and our understanding of Jesus will expand in meaningful ways. And a reminder on that note that while you're traveling this summer, if you have to be away for a week, you can pick up a travel Jesus from the fellowship hall and take him with you on your trip. And then if you would like to share pictures of that, you can do that on Facebook or by emailing it to the office, and we'll put up a copy on the bulletin board so we can all share in our travels and stay connected over the summer. Our first stop this week on our travels with Jesus is the land of the Gerasenes, which is on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. And this travel story comes from Luke 8, verses 26 to 39. Then the disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met Jesus. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So that's quite a travel story that Jesus had when he got back home. And if we look closely at this story, there is more than one person who is healed. Of course, the man who was possessed by demons is set free from the legion that had plagued him. So now he can return home and be part of his community again. And this is certainly life-changing for him. But the rest of the community is also set free from some less visible demons that were plaguing them. Demons that they were just as reluctant to let go of. This man, or maybe the demons that were speaking through him, begged Jesus not to torment them by casting them out of their comfortable home. They don't want Jesus to release this man from their grip and send them back into the abyss. And the Gerasenes would have preferred, too, like the demons, for Jesus to just leave them alone. They liked things the way they were. I mean, it may have been a nuisance to have a possessed wild man running around their village, but at least it was a nuisance that made sense to them. And it let them feel a little bit superior. At least they weren't the crazy ones with a legion of evil in their hearts. And after all, they could assume that this possessed man must have done something to deserve being possessed by demons. He was the bad one in the village, so they could all go about their lives confident that they were better off. Confident that they understood how the world worked. If you're bad, you get sick. And if you're good, you'd stay healthy. If you follow the rules, you would live a nice, quiet life. And if you deviate from the norms of the community, then you deserve to be banished into the tombs. But Jesus shows up and he shakes up their order. He takes away the reason they have to point out to this other guy as the source of the problem. Jesus doesn't abide by their assumption that because this man has demons, he should be looked down on and cast out. Jesus sets them free from their stereotypes and from the categories that help them make sense of the world. And so they are not happy about it. They're afraid. They, like the demons, don't want to find themselves in the abyss, a place without boundaries that help them define their relationships and designate who's in and who's out. To me, in a very strange story, this is the strangest part, that after Jesus gets rid of the demons, Luke tells us, the Gerasenes are afraid. You'd assume that what would frighten them would be a legion of demons in their neighbor, but it's just the opposite. They are afraid once the demons are gone. We too, I think, sometimes prefer our own familiar demons over learning how to see the world without them. We prefer to have somebody else we can point to as evil, as corrupt, as the problem, so that we can be the good guys, so that we don't have to take responsibility for their suffering. But Jesus calls us to create a new way of understanding the world, a new kind of community in which we're all set free from what plagues us, from what keeps us from fully loving each other and being one whole body of Christ. After all, it's easy to see the demons in others, but a lot harder to admit that we harbor demons in our hearts too. They often disguise themselves in what we intended for good. We don't want to fall into an abyss that takes away these categories we know, in which we are compassionate and welcoming. And those hypocritical Christians over there, the ones who aren't welcoming of LGBTQ people, the ones who don't put women in leadership, deserve to have their churches fall apart. We can look at the Southern Baptist or the Methodist, and we can feel better because we are much more open-minded than they are. But to really be set free, we could instead examine what we could be doing to be more inclusive and empowering for all people. We can look at the divisions in our country and the rise in racism, in anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim violence, and we can blame all those people over there that we consider bigoted and backwards, while we take comfort in being the ones who are more ethical and intelligent. But to really be set free, we could take responsibility for building more interracial and interfaith relationships, for reaching out across political lines to bring people together. We can look at those who are poor and homeless in our community, and we can give to shelters and food banks and show up to fix breakfast, and we can feel good that we are generous. But if we still look down on the people who depend on our gifts and believe that we're really more deserving than they are, then we are not yet free to look at the factors that prevent people from escaping poverty. So maybe your demons are different from these examples, but I think we all have some kind of spirits that separate us from fully loving our neighbor like Jesus wants. And it's hard to recognize those voices that possess us because we're so focused on the demons out there in our neighbors, because we're so used to living with those voices that they have become a part of us. But once we begin to see those we cast out and demonize in a new light, we may find that we are called to see ourselves differently too. We might have to ask some hard questions about the categories we've made and accept that we might have been wrong about our neighbor. We don't want to be sent into that abyss. Now, in Jesus' time, the abyss was where people believed that disobedient spirits were imprisoned. But according to the Oxford Dictionary, a more modern definition of abyss is a profound difference between people. And whenever Jesus shows up to heal someone, his healing involves not just physical restoration, but restoring the relationships between people who have been divided. Like Legion and like the Gerasenes, we probably prefer that Jesus just leave us alone. But the good news is that Jesus shows up and casts out our demons whether we invite him in or not. We can negotiate and beg all we want. We can ask him not to stay too long in our town. But when Jesus encounters forces that lead some people into the tombs, he finds a way to restore life. When Jesus meets those that we have excluded or rejected, he finds a way to bring healing and wholeness, even if we are afraid of what that will look like for us. The Gerasenes are afraid because if Jesus can cast out their demons, what else can he do to shake things up and challenge the way they've been living? And so they ask him to leave. These people who have only known their neighbor as a raving madman now have to figure out new ways of being in relationship with him, how to accept him back into their midst. I imagine it will take time for them to learn how to trust him, to get to know this person whose voice was drowned out for so long by the legion who spoke for him. And this man who has been living in the tombs, kept in chains by his neighbors, has to rediscover how to build friendships, how to have meaningful conversations again, how to find his own voice and be a part of a community that has rejected him. He has to learn how to forgive those who have hurt him and how to believe he is worthy of being accepted and included. When he's finally set free, this formerly possessed man asks Jesus to go with him. He wants to leave town with Jesus. But Jesus tells him to stay there, to not let his neighbors forget what Jesus has done. Jesus heals and casts out demons so that people can find belonging again, so that relationships can be restored, so that true healing can take place among us, even for those of us who didn't realize that we need healing too. So if you want to seek Jesus' healing and hope as part of this community of faith, then Amanda or I would be happy to talk to you about baptism or becoming a member of St. Paul's. And if you are ready to join the church today, you are welcome to come forward as we all stand and sing our hymn of invitation, Amazing Grace.